Imagine waking up to the sound of shattering glass, and before you stands an entity unnaturally tall, as thin as a skeleton, and completely devoid of a face. It doesn't want to kill you. It wants you to become it. Tall, thin, and faceless, an anonymous obsession. Part 1. The white padded walls. 4 white walls. Pure white and softly padded, day in, day out. This is all that remains of my world. They say I'm insane, or at least, according to the files of the dozen psychiatrists who take turns observing me, I am certifiably insane. Paranoia, hallucinations, schizophrenia, multiple personality disorder. The list stretches on like a scroll with no end. But let me tell you why. I must stare at these white padded walls every single second. Before this, I was a normal middle-class man, living the American dream. I had a loving wife and 2 wonderful children. My income was high. My debt was low. I had everything. Then, everything began to spiral. It plummeted into an abyss that even now I cannot fully comprehend. Part 2. The Tailor's Cabin. My wife and I always yearned to visit the British Isles. It took 7 years and 2 promotions before we saved enough to make that dream a reality. After months of meticulous planning, we left our worries behind, left the kids with their grandmother, and flew across the Atlantic. 24 days of pure scenery and relaxation. A week into the trip, we decided to leave the bustle of the city to find the peaceful countryside of England. There, we stumbled upon an old tailor shop in a modestly decorated cabin. The owner was an old man who had been in the trade for over 65 years. Curiosity drove me to buy a hand-tailored suit, something no machine could ever replicate. While waiting, a picture on the wall caught my eye. It was an old black and white photo from the mid-50s. In it, a man in a suit, unnaturally tall and thin, stood on a grassy plain. But the strange thing was his face. It looked as though someone had smudged it out. The photo exuded a sense of threat, a dark vibration that sent a chill down my spine. When I inquired about it, the old tailor flatly refused to answer. That silence only fueled the fire of suspicion in my mind. Part 3. The Subtle Presence. We returned home exhausted. As the car pulled into the driveway, I felt something was off. A vague dread, identical to the feeling I had looking at the photo in the tailor's shop, took hold of me. When I stepped out of the car, my legs suddenly gave out. I collapsed onto the concrete, unable to force myself up. My wife had to help me into the bedroom. I thought I just needed a long sleep to recover, but I was wrong. That night, the nightmares began. He was there, on that grassy plain. He was unnaturally tall, distortedly thin, and completely faceless. No matter how hard I tried to focus, his face remained a blurred, indefinite void. He just stood there, haunting my subconscious until I was jolted awake by the sound of a desk lamp shattering downstairs. I raced down the stairs, clutching a brick we used as a doorstop. Darkness engulfed the living room. I knelt to pick up a fragment of the lamp when a gust of wind brushed past the back of my neck, fast as if someone had just run by. I bolted upright, spun around, but saw no one. Could it be extreme fatigue? I tried to convince myself the lamp had simply slid off the table due to a minor tremor. But all through that night, he appeared everywhere in my dreams, cautiously hiding behind the trees around the house, watching me, analyzing me. Part 4. The Abduction. The next morning, the children returned from their grandmothers. I tried to regain my composure to play with them, but when I looked at the desk lamp, the blood in my veins turned to ice. The lamp had been shoddily glued back together, but the substance used wasn't glue. It was a black, rubbery material, thick like tar. My wife thought I was being paranoid because of exhaustion. That night, the silence was torn apart by the sound of glass breaking upstairs. We rushed up. My eldest son pointed, trembling, toward his brother's room. I kicked the door open. In the faint glow of the nightlight, I saw him Slender Man. He was hovering over my son's bed. I charged in like a mad animal, throwing punches into the void. Long, black tendrils whipped through the air. The last thing I remember was being lifted off the ground and thrown violently against the wall. I blacked out. When I woke up, my wife was sobbing hysterically. I had 3 cracked ribs, and my son was gone. He had taken my boy. Part 5. The Bloodstained Suit. The police arrived. They searched the forest but found no trace. As they were about to leave, they spotted a scrap of black pinstriped fabric hanging from a very high branch. It was the fabric from the suit I had bought in England. The police asked to see my suit. When they opened the closet door, a horrific scene was revealed. My missing son was wrapped tightly in the tattered suit, drenched in blood. He was no longer breathing. I fainted again. The next time I opened my eyes, I was in a gray, sterile interrogation room. The officer told me that while I hadn't been convicted yet, all the evidence pointed toward me. I was sent home under constant supervision. At home, I found a picture my son had drawn before he died. A crayon drawing of himself standing next to a tall, faceless man in a black suit. I stuffed the drawing into my pocket. Later, the police took my family to a hotel for temporary stay. In the bathroom, I secretly took the drawing out. What made my skin crawl the most wasn't the image of Slender Man, but the fact that he had no identity. He was a perfect 0. Part 6. The Final Transformation. At 5 a.m. the next day, the police knocked with news. My son's body had disappeared from the hospital. I knew he was back. I tricked the officer into driving me back to the old house on the pretext of forgetting something, then escaped through the back door and ran straight into the forest. In the darkness, I found a scrap of white paper. It was another drawing by my son, but this time, it depicted our entire family standing next to Slender Man. When the officer caught up to me, I panicked. In a moment of lost control, I used a stone to strike him over the head, stole his car keys, and drove frantically toward the hotel. The hotel room door burst open. The scene inside was a living hell. Blood painted the room red. 3 bodies, my wife and my 2 children, lay in a circle around Slender Man. He turned to look at me. His non-existent eyes stared deep into my soul. He broadcasted nameless emotions into my mind, pains I had never known. He reached out a gaunt hand and whispered a single phrase that shattered my mind. "Help me." Sirens wailed behind me. I raised my hands in surrender. When I looked back, Slender Man had vanished into thin air, leaving only a heap of tattered suit fabric on the floor. They arrested me. My DNA was on the suit, and I became the sole culprit. Now, I am here, between these white walls. The emotions he broadcasted to me stripped away my ability to speak. I cannot talk. I can only write and draw. I draw what he has seen. I write what he has felt. Sometimes, I feel as though I am no longer myself. I feel that he and I are one. That day, I learned a cruel truth. We were Slender.